The Doll's House, Chapter 4. When the doll's house arrived, Marchpane was not in it. She had been sent to the cleaners. That was very bad for Marchpane. The cleaners took such care of her that it went to her head, which, being china, was very empty, which is a very dangerous kind of head to have. Mr. Plantagenet had one too, and it had been filled with his gloomy thoughts of dark toy cupboards and boys who drew mustaches, but now it was more happily filled with thoughts of the doll's house. Marchpane's was filled with thoughts of Marchpane. And at the cleaners, she thought how wonderful Marchpane was, how valuable Marchpane was, how beautifully Marchpane was made, what elegant clothes Marchpane had, with what small, exquisite stitching. I am a beautiful little creature, really I am, thought Marchpane. I must be worth a fabulous amount of money. No wonder they are so careful of me. They can hardly be careful enough. I am so very important, said Marchpane. There was no one to contradict her, and her thoughts of Marchpane grew larger and larger till you would have thought her little head was hardly big enough to contain them. The cleaners took off her fine sewn wedding clothes and washed and cleaned them exquisitely so that they were whiter than snowdrops or snow. Then they cleaned Marchpane herself all over, and she was whiter too, but they cleaned her with petrol. And after it, I must confess, she smelled strongly and nastily of petrol. In fact, ever afterwards, she had a faintly nasty smell, which was quite right because she was nasty. The cleaners redressed her and replaited her hair, which they had cleaned until it looked like golden floss. Then, having politely asked permission first, they put her on the counter of their shop with a card, Mid-19th Century Doll, as cleaned by us. Marchpane stood on the counter, and everyone who came into the shop looked at her and admired her. Marchpane liked being looked at and admired more and more, though she thought, of course, it was only her due, and that people were very lucky to have a chance to see such an elegant and beauteous doll as Marchpane. I'm going to read chapter 5 too, because they're so short. So, Charlotte and Emily, the Plantagenet family, had been busy. The doll's house was exactly as Toddy had described it, but "Oh dear," said Mr. Plantagenet, and if the corners of his mouth had been made to turn down, they would have turned down. "Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear." On the doll's house and in it were years and years of dust and grime and cobwebs and mold and rust. The children and the Plantagenets looked at the tattered chairs and sofa covers, at the torn old curtains, at the seashells fallen off the picture frames, at the remains of the butler. The blue tin stove was rusty, and so was the bath. The mangle was stuck. Some of the kitchen chairs were broken, and the nicked round blankets were gray with mildew. "Oh dear," said Mr. Plantagenet. "Stop saying 'oh dear,'" said Toddy sharply. "But what can we do? What can we do?" "We can wish," said Toddy, still sharply, because, truth to tell, she was feeling worried and anxious herself. Would the children be able to put it in order? That was the question in Toddy's mind. "It's dusty, it's dirty, it's horrible," cried Little Apple. "Is it?" asked Bertie anxiously. She could not herself see anything more than the birdcage and the bird. They were so wonderful to Bertie that she could not see anything else, and being two things of the same kind, she did not feel the thoughts of them knocking together in her head. "Is it dusty and dirty, Toddy?" asked Bertie. "Wish, wish," said Toddy, and every knot and grain of her seemed to harden. She came from a tree. "What shall we do? What can we do?" said Mr. Plantagenet. "Don't bleat. Wish," said Toddy hardly, and her hard voice made the words sound so hard and firm that even Mr. Plantagenet took heart, and they all began to wish. "Wish that Emily and Charlotte can put our house in order and make it good again. Go on, all of you. Wish, wish, wish," said Toddy. At that moment, among the Plantagenets appeared hands, Emily's and Charlotte's hands, lifting them onto the mantelpiece out of the way where they could see. Then those same hands began to strip the doll's house. "What did I tell you?" said Toddy. "But they are not making it. They're taking it all away, taking it to pieces, taking it all away." Wait and see," said Toddy. Emily and Charlotte and their mothers took everything out of the doll's house. They took the carpets up from their tin tacks. With the carpets came layers of dust. They did not look like carpets, but pieces of crinkled old gray flannel. Bertie hid her face in her hands. "I wanted the pink one, and there isn't a pink one," she said. Wait and see," said Toddy. "The carpets are filthy," said Mother. "I will take them to wash and iron." "What did I say?" said Toddy. Meanwhile, Charlotte was brushing down the walls and roof. Emily was brushing out the rooms and stairs. Then Charlotte fetched a pail of water and a cake of soap and her nail brush. "Charlotte, do you think you ought to use that?" Hush, said Charlotte, beginning to use it. She washed the walls and roof, and Emily, after watching a moment, joined in and, fetching her nail brush, began to wash the floors and walls and ceilings. She was a little astonished because she was the one who usually thought of things. It was unusual for Charlotte to be the first. Said Emily, scrubbing hard. Charlotte must like the doll's house very much. The grime was so deep, the dust so thick, that they had to change the water in the pail 3 times. London grime, said Toddy, watching. 100 years of London grime. I hope she doesn't miss the front steps, said Mr. Plantagenet, but Charlotte did not miss the front steps. She missed nothing at all. By the time she had finished, she herself was filthy, with a filthy overall and dirt marks on her cheeks. Then she took a dry cloth and dried the walls and roof and steps all over, then took a duster and polished them. Emily watched again and followed her. Good work, Charlotte, she said. Yes, good work, said Toddy. Good work, cried out all the Plantagenets. Why, it begins to look new, said Emily, stepping back from the doll's house. Indeed, it looked much better. The good paint, and paint was good in those days, had come up well, and the wallpapers from their brushing had lost their look of grime. Charlotte had knocked down a few more shells from the pictures, but Emily had fetched the glue and glued them on again, which was unusual for Emily because she did not usually do things for Charlotte. She also brushed and dusted the furniture and rubbed the rust off the stove with sandpaper. She pulled the curtains down from the windows to which they had been fastened with drawing pins and ripped the covers off the sofa and the chairs. Soon beds, chairs, and windows were left quite bare. Are you still wishing, Toddy? Asked Mr. Plantagenet anxiously. Yes, said Toddy firmly. You see what I mean, don't you? Said Mr. Plantagenet. You must wish about the curtains, said Toddy. You must wish about the couch and chairs. You must wish about the beds. Curtains, chairs, beds, said Mr. Plantagenet. He wished he could shut his eyes in order to wish harder, but of course he could not because they were not made to shut. Over and over again, said Toddy. You must never leave off wishing. Beds, chairs, couch, curtains. Beds, chairs, couch, curtains. Beds, chairs. My cot, my own little cot, wished Apple. My bird broom feather. Bertie still did not know which to think of first. Beds, couch, curtains, chairs. The door opened and the children's mother came in. Could you have washed those carpets already? Asked Mr. Plantagenet suspiciously. She answered him herself. I have washed the carpets, said Mother. They have come up beautifully. Now I have brought the scrap bag. We shall need new mattresses and pillows and sheets and blankets for the beds. And pillowcases, said Charlotte, for mouse-sized pillows. Emily stared at Charlotte, and so did the Plantagenets. It was not usually Charlotte who said things. Could I have a mouse-sized pillow? Asked Apple, excited. A pillow for a very small mouse? I shall fetch the cotton wool, said Emily, and then I can stuff them as you make them. But I don't want cotton wool for mine, cried Bertie. I want. Her head rattled so that she could not say what it was she wanted. Toddy began to wish. I think Bertie ought to have a feather bed, said Charlotte suddenly. Ah, said Bertie rapturously. Here are some bits of flannel for blankets. We can knit them round the edges, said Mother. And what do you think? Shall we make Apple a patchwork quilt for his cot? Could you make the patches small enough? Asked Emily. Mother thought she could. It is getting better and better and better, said Mr. Plantagenet. Yes, said Bertie. Yes, but you must go on wishing, said Toddy. You mustn't leave off wishing. While I am in this cleaning mood, said Charlotte, I'm going to wash the windows. What shall we do about curtains? Asked Charlotte. They should be lace, said Mother. Then Emily spoke. They must be real lace, said Emily. Mr. Plantagenet smiled. Real lace is very expensive, said Mother. I shall get my money box, answered Emily. Get mine too, said Charlotte. What is the difference between real lace and not real lace? Whispered Bertie. It is made by hand and not by machine, said Toddy slowly, and it shows the care that was taken to make it. And besides being fine, it is strong, every last bit of it, and it looks different and it feels different. You would know the difference if you saw the two together. Do you think I would? Said Bertie humbly. Real things and not real things, they seem the same to me. My bird and its song. She knew one was real and one was not, but she could not say now which was which. Emily came back with the money boxes. They were rather empty. Hers had a 3-penny bit, a half-crown, and a florin, and a 6-penny bit in it. 5 shillings and 3pence, said Emily. Charlotte's had a florin, 6pence, 4 3-penny bits, and a penny. 3 shillings and 7pence, said Emily. 8 and 10pence altogether. That might be enough, but there are other things we want as well, said Emily. There was a gleam in her eyes as she looked at the old couch and chairs. I shall measure the windows, said Charlotte, and she measured them with Mother's tape measure. They were 6 inches long, 6 inches, and there are 4 windows. 4 times 6 is 24. 24 inches, and 27 inches is 3/4 of a yard. We should have to buy 3/4 of a yard of that real lace, said Charlotte, and we should have 3 inches over. We could make a lace apron for Tottie. Yes, but we need a new couch and chairs. The couch and chairs, now they were stripped, certainly looked in very bad repair. Their wooden arms and legs were scratched and stained, and they had no stuffing left on the seats and no backs at all. Not a little patch of that red velvet, said Mr. Plantagenet. There are others in the shop, said Charlotte uncertainly. Yes, ordinary ones, said Emily scornfully. Wouldn't ordinary ones do? Charlotte was a little like Bertie. She was happy with ordinary things, but Emily was not. This doll's house is special, said Emily. You know it is, Charlotte. It is an antique, said Emily. What is what did she say then? Asked Mr. Plantagenet. Yes, what is it? What is it, Tottie? Old things are antiques, said Tottie. Things that have lasted for many years, usually because they were beautifully made of good material in the beginning. Like real lace, said Mr. Plantagenet. Yes, and usually they have been given great care, or they would not have lasted all that time, said Tottie. Like the doll's house? Asked Bertie. It is an antique. Emily said so. Are you an antique, Tottie? Asked Apple suddenly. I suppose I am, said Tottie. I know what would look very beautiful on that holly green carpet, Emily was saying slowly. Do you know, Charlotte? What? Asked Charlotte. Do you remember looking at that shop in Wigmore Street, said Emily, where they had that little set of doll's house chairs and a couch? They were very old, and they were made of real oak. It said so, and they were red velvet, too. And there was a table, said Charlotte dreamily, and it had a red runner and a fringe. Yes, said Emily. Yes, said Charlotte. Yes, said the Plantagenets. I shall have 6pence for my tooth when it comes out, said Charlotte. Oh, Charlotte, don't be silly, said Emily. Those chairs were terribly expensive. Then we shall have to have ordinary lace and chairs. Oh, no, cried Mr. Plantagenet. Oh, no, please, no. I don't mind ordinary chairs, said Bertie. I can make do with anything. We can't, said Emily. We shan't. But what shall we do? We shall do what other people do when they want things, said Emily. We must make money. But how? Asked Charlotte. How? Asked the Plantagenets. Somehow, said Emily. End of chapter 5.